if I remember.
that one
Oh,
was
no, they wanted
by
pour in
addition?
place. They wanted pour in place, right? They wanted pour in place.
One bid for them, place in it, so we have to start that process.
Yeah, we have to rebid pour in place.
Melissa was just getting ready to call you for me.
Zero bids out of
Huh?
interested bidders.
Melissa was calling Kent for me.
Oh, he's here. He's here.
Who was calling?
Melissa was calling Kent. I mean, calling you for me to see if we can meet right after this.
Fine.
No bidders on the bidding
Great.
Huh?
No bidders on the.
That's what he said, no bidder on pour in place.
One was too busy, the other two couldn't comply with their agreement.
Okay.
Didn't want to try to comply with it.
And how long is the bidding process? I forget, I know it's state.
It has to be advertised for 10 days.
10 days, yeah.
It has to be.
Hello, it's cold. You have a jacket?
Huh? No, just record.
Not ordered.
You promise.
Lots of
I
people are
promise.
asking. So I don't really know the answer. So,
The answer, the best answer, you talking about the playground stuff?
yeah,
The best answer is whatever was originally decided before Kent and I arrived is still in play, but all the playground stuff is not here yet because there's nowhere to store it. So, but it's all
I
in
think
the
it would
grant.
just help to have a timeline of knowing, hey, my playground will be in a year, or
Oh yeah, that would be great.
like, that would be
That would be
really
really great. Now that we know how to put it in, it might be a little bit easier to do. But the idea of what it took to put it in is cumbersome and
I get
slow.
it.
And
I
slow.
get it.
Okay, I got it almost 4. I guess we can wait a second. Oh, no, we're getting close. We're getting close. Jennifer, I think. There's a few rounds to it. Like 5 times. I got to have some there. Give me that 5. Just to make sure we have enough.
Yeah, girl. I got my whole colored bag here.
Is that what you want?
Gotta have a color code. Color all the choices.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 4 o'clock. Take a minute to go through the minutes if you'd like. If you were here and you see anything that you think needs to be changed, speak up. I'll give you until Jennifer gets back. And then we'll move right into the rest of the agenda. Unless there's anybody, Mr. Stupin, did you have anything to add? No. Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Does anybody have anything that they want changed in the minutes? And if I don't see anything by anybody, we will consider the minutes approved. And we'll move on. Okay. We have an entity or two that the DPS family uses, both families and staff use for parking. Specifically, the one I want to talk about today is at Muffley. It's across the street from Muffley. They have allowed for years, as I understand it, Muffley's families, parents to use their parking lot for sporting events or pickup and drop off. But now their parking lot's kind of in disrepair, and they would like for us to assist them in resealing and filling cracks. Correct, Kent?
Correct.
So entertain that conversation. It is a valuable piece of property that we don't currently own, but I was able to obtain written agreement where if we were to reseal and refill the cracks in their parking lot, we would have full access to that parking lot outside of their business time for 10 years. So first of all, I'd like to hear thoughts on that. If anybody has any concerns or questions, if the total is going to be about 13 to 16,000.
I think it was 12.5.
So less than 13 to 16,000, which is good news. But by doing the work for that entity, we would have access to that entity for parking, which is not something we have a lot of at Muffley. So there was a line in the MOU I want to get clarified with them first before I bring it to the full board. But starting here at the finance, does anybody see any issue with that at all? We have the MOU to back up the continued use. So if the person who's in charge of that entity were to leave, and then the next person were to say, we don't want you to use the parking lot, we would say, sorry, we paved it out, and try to build that repair whatever relationship was not built yet with whoever's in charge. But we'll be using it for the next 10 years.
Sounds good.
I spoke to the minister, and he said that they only have service on Wednesday evening and Sunday, so that would be one time not be available to us.
And it has been a great asset
Good.
to Muffley because I'm at Muffley, so I'm very much aware of it.
Yeah, and then it's a lot quicker than trying to put another parking lot at Muffley somewhere. And so, like I said, from what I understand, they've been good neighbors. They would just like,
yes.
and then we're also going to work with our neighbor right here to the west for the same thing potentially, because we use that parking lot quite a bit as well. So anyway, that's that. I'll bring that back up for discussion in a board meeting soon.
Just as a point, what does a parking lot cost these days per stall? It's several thousand per stall, isn't it? For an
How many we have in
8 foot
here?
stall? For a new parking lot, if we had to build it.
About $1,500.
Doesn't take very long.
Because we're doing the asphalt one right now.
It's about $1,500 per piece.
Which, by the way, should be striped and ready to go.
Correct. Should be available tomorrow.
What?
Yeah. The one at the temporary dentist, yeah. Last time, if you look at the minutes, we talked a little bit about CPPRT and how it's been high the last couple of years in the neighborhood of $11 million. Well, those days were short-lived. They were great, but those days are over. This year it's an 80%, or it's an 80%, so a 20% reduction. So we're going to get about $3 million less in revenue from CPPRT. Next year, they're projecting another 20%, and then probably being static after that. But you never know. But that's the conversation that's out there right now. So, like last year, we received about 11 million, like I said, and this year we're going to get about 8.8 million if everything shows up like it's supposed to. But I had mentioned that it was an all-time high right now, but FY24 was still unknown. It's right there in the minutes. But the common belief is it will be lower, and since our last meeting, it did turn out to be 20% less. So that's $3 million less in revenue to sprinkle around all the funds. So the budget is still in tentative. I'll keep. I have to keep all of these. Keep this one in the mix. This is a tentative. There's been some changes since the last time the budget was presented at the meeting.
Thanks.
Oh, sorry. The big T just signifies that it's tentative.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so if we just start with the big picture items, the one big change, there's two big changes from the previous budget that was presented on my behalf by Mary Ann at the meeting in August. The first one is the deficit that we were anticipating for the ed fund, but I believe was around, I didn't bring a copy down because it's no longer relevant, but it was over $2 million in the red for expenditures over revenues for this year. Dug in pretty hard on the salaries, and we believe we're a lot closer now at about a $500,000 potentially being in the red for the ed fund. Now that would be, obviously that means we'd spend everything that we budgeted, and we brought in every nickel that we budgeted. Neither one of those things are guaranteed. Often we don't spend everything we budget, and you can pretty much count on not getting every revenue that you budget for. But so that was the first one. And then if you look at the line 3, the estimated fund balance for the ed fund, the $30,627,000. If you remember back, that was about $33 million. Something you have in front of you, Mark. So moved a little bit of money there at the end of the year to bolster a few of these other funds, but in the end, we had a double booking of money in our investment fund that showed up as $2.5 million more because it was booked twice than we had. So we had to back that out in conversations, obviously, with the auditor. We had to back that out. So we're at $30,627,000, which is still $5 million more than we had projected to end with last year. So the ed fund is healthy for now. Everything else looks pretty good. A couple things I do want to point out. O&M is always a tricky, that's Fund 20, O&M. It's always a tricky one to budget for because we over budget for supplies because things break. And then in working with Kent, the cost of energy this year is predicted to be considerably more than last year. So we budgeted for that as well. We're hoping that we obviously come in a little bit higher than the negative $2 million in expenditures to funding. The other one to notice is transportation. It looks good right now, but that's one we're still drilling down on with the transportation director. So that one may change a little bit more between now and then. And then the other 3 red ones, let's talk about those. Fund 60 shows a $3 million, almost $4 million over in expenditures and revenues, but that's planned. So we are planning to use fund balances we've been saving to do the MacArthur renovation. So that red is planned. Nothing abnormal about that. You don't spend for a while, then you spend when you can afford to fix or build or do whatever you need to do with your capital project money. So, and then tort, a lot of that excess expenditures are the safety upgrades that we're doing in the buildings, including the new mobile weapons detection systems. So planned spending. So spending down some reserves. And then fire prevention and safety, same thing, windows and roof projects that have been on the radar and we're going to try to tackle this year. So those are pre-planned overages, for lack of a better word. Spending down fund balances for the specific purpose. Ed fund being $500,000 over. At the moment, that doesn't worry me. I don't feel like we'll be there, but we'll see how things go. We still have another week and a half or so to drill into this, and then we'll just keep watching the maintenance fund and see what happens there. At the end of the year, we can move some money out of the ed fund as necessary to cover any of those expenses in operations and maintenance. Probably put a little bit more CPPRT in there as well than I've already got budgeted. If, as we get closer to the end of the year, it looks like we're going to be going farther and farther into expenditures over revenue. So that's a very high level 20,000 foot view of what's on paper right now. We still have some work to do in transportation with both Kimmy and Cheyenne. Any questions on what you see in front of you? There's obviously 37,000 more account code line items to look at, if not more, but the budget itself will be about 40 pages when it all comes out. at the board meeting, the whole budget.
That's all, huh?
Yeah, 40. This is the most important page for most people. Anybody have any questions or thoughts of what they see? Also, Fund 90 also now includes the unanticipated at the start of the year cost of the modulars, which, switching gears for, at some point in time, we need to bring to the board before December lease lengths, because the length of the lease determines the payment. Mr. Reynolds took me up on an offer to come in and visit on the budget. It was a good meeting. We talked a little bit about the different costs, but I need to bring it to the full board for some sort of decision prior to 12/31/23.
Mike,
Yeah.
just remind everyone, we have one board meeting in November,
Mm-hmm.
one board meeting in December.
Mm-hmm. So that
But we could have a special meeting if we needed to, correct?
if you can get 4 people out, absolutely, you sure can. So currently the lease rates will be as follows: $37 a month for one of the buildings, $36 a month for another building, and $26 a month for another building. And those aren't simple dollars; those are thousands. If you were to do a 24-month, it drops to 26, 25.5, and 18.3. And if the board so chooses to do a 36-month lease, depending on what we find out regarding the future of the other locations, how long it might take to repair, etc., you'd be down to 19, and then basically 19, and then 13.6 a month. So there's considerable drops. So if you know, it's hard to know, but if the board were to decide by 12/31, the rest of this calendar year would then be at the lower rate, the next lower rate. I know Best is not here, but the fact that they were willing to work with us to make this decision was not easy. It took some conversations with their leasing office to give us the flexibility to decide later, because they knew we were somewhat in crisis, for lack of a better term, when it comes to putting these modulars in. So, any questions on that? The quarterly education fund, was that in there? Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks. Something that's been presented at this meeting for many years, as I understand it. Shows you that different areas throughout the education fund and how it was spent. Feel free to look through it. We ended up coming in under budget overall in almost all categories, which is good. Certain lines maybe were over, but throughout the entire control group, there were areas that were not spent. So this just kind of gives you an idea of certain control groups in the budget. The only one that was clearly over budget was transportation and personnel. Transportation was just about $500,000 over budget. Personnel was about $225,000 over budget. So take a look at that, ask any questions that I can get answered for you at a later date, most likely. Because other people have control over these budgets. I can dig into why they may have been over budget, but nothing jumps out and screams at me as a problem. The Title II being over budget is actually a good thing, because that means we ended up getting more funds than we initially had budgeted for. So those are some of the, sometimes it's okay to be over. So there's that. I do have a request from an employee So I don't know how many of you know Ed Walton and things that he does at the high school level, but he teaches our construction trades. And he's used his own trailer for years and years, and it's taken a beating, and he would like our assistance in replacing the axles, springs, rims, and tires, and or we could buy a new trailer. So I haven't priced a new trailer, but I can tell you that the cost of the axles and springs and tires are $23.74, and having Thornton Welding remove and install the work is about $1,500. So this is to be something I would also bring to the board. Ed's been with the district 18 years, retiring 3 years. He's doing his very best to turn out skilled high school kids for the trades. Has some really great stories about some of the kids that have left that program and got into the trades. And I've got a nice letter here from Rocky Wilkerson, who works with Ed in the summer, about all the great work that Ed does with students in the summer. So it's really just a board decision. I really could go either way. If it's been used on the job for this long and taken the kind of beating that it takes each day, I have no problem repairing it. The reason I would be hesitant maybe to buy a new trailer is when Ed decides to move on to greener pastures, building trades teachers don't grow on trees, and we've got a trailer we may not need for a while. So I would leave that decision up to the board, but I have, like I said, I could go either way and sleep at night, because I think the program itself is beneficial, and the fact that Ed's been doing it all with his own equipment is both deserves the merit of being acknowledged and either repaired or we buy a new trailer for him to use on him.
I would suggest we repair it. I think it's commendable on his part that he's provided the trailer for that length of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's done some repair along the way on his own as well, so it's just time.
Is he being encouraged to find a mentor relationship or someone to replace him?
I would hope so. I can certainly talk to Mr. To Cordell. Yeah, we can talk to Cordell. So, but yeah, it's a really good program. It just teaches a skill that a lot of us don't have.
Well, it should be a growing program these days, shouldn't it?
You would think. He has great faith in the kids that come through his program. Some years there's several. Some years they come and go based on their schedule. Having conversations with him, but some kids get in it and stay in it and go work in the trade. So he was just telling me about one kid that was already in the hall, after just as soon as he got out of high school. So.
Do they recruit that, or is that just an open choice for students?
That's a Cordell question, probably. I don't know that answer. I don't know if Jeff or Dr. Clark did.
Recruit other kids to be part of the program. It's usually by word of mouth, because you don't know what you don't know just yet. So a lot of times friends will come in, but they do try to recruit the kids.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like with a lot of our programs. Word of mouth really is the best way to promote it. The students get to talk about what they learned, how they're able to use it, how quickly they were able to get jobs.
Do any of the trades have any relationship with Ed that they help out?
I'm sure.
Okay, any other questions on anything that we've talked about so far? So the next step of the plan will be to present the actual final budget at the next board meeting, which also will include what's called the evidence-based spending plan. And that's a much less cumbersome document than it used to be for superintendents. I'll do the work and I'll share it with Dr. Clark and we'll go through it, but it's not nearly as cumbersome as it used to be, is what they're telling me. And I have looked at it, and it looks a lot different than back when I had to do it as superintendent. So that will all come with a short presentation. Actually, I said that wrong. The presentation will come to the full board, PowerPoint of kind of where we're at in the following board meeting. So 2 board meetings, not this one, but the next one. This one will bring the budget for final approval. We have to have 30 days. So anything else?
Would you mind getting a quote on a new trailer?
I
Just to
don't
see-
mind at all.
See what the,
Will you write that down, or it'll slip into the abyss.
You could probably use a trailer, couldn't you? If we bought a new trailer and down the road,
3 years down the road, though, it'd be busy every day until then. Yeah,
We can never have too many trailers.
you never have
Okay.
trailers. I'll get a quote.
I would agree with that
I'll
then.
get a quote.
thanks.
Mm-hmm. I'll just have Ed price out what he would, what standard of trailer he needs,
Hmm.
and then we'll get some quotes. Or spec out, I'm sorry, and we'll get quotes. Okay, anything else for the good of the group?
Well, I do have a question. If it is decided that we purchase a new trailer, do you still repair it?
It's a great question.
I think it'd be a good gift to him.
I feel like the repair piece is probably priority for me. Goodwill and a thank you, and the fact that I don't know, if trailers easy to buy. I really like cars right now. They're pretty easy to
They're
have.
pretty easy.
Maybe we could get one sooner, prioritize that, and then repair it as well. So there's options. Now that I'm hearing that both of them, we'll go down both paths. Get you some numbers.
I don't know what the trailer looks like, but there is a big one on Harryland Road, just before you get to Baltimore, on the left-hand side. There's a truck attached to it and everything, but it's a big white box.
Yeah, I haven't seen the trailer either, so don't want to speak for Ed, but I'll corner in Baltimore or something. Okay.
Ted just lets us know what he's looking, what he has. We'll figure something.
Sure. I can share that with you right now. Anything else? Going once? Going twice? Yeah. And I think this meeting's over. Thanks. So here's what he currently has. Let's show you this. Yeah, thanks for not. Yeah, thanks for not letting it even jokingly go tick tick tick.
I do my best.